How do you return from your vacation stress-free and ready to work on important things? That's what we're talking about today. Hi, this is Frank Buck, and this is the place to be if you want to get organized and make it look easy. Today's episode isn't the one I had planned. 2 days ago, my wife and I returned from a week's vacation in New England, and I'd made a conscious decision not to take my laptop. After all, it's a vacation. Now, I'm proud to say that after just a couple of days back on the grid, I'm 100% up to date with email, had no pressing deadlines, and best of all, I navigated that return stress free. So, how did I do it? Well, that's the focus of today's episode. And again, I really hadn't planned to do this, but after getting back on the grid so quickly, I decided I couldn't not make this video, go ahead and edit it, get it up ready for you at the first opportunity. So here's how it works. First of all, prepare for your absence. Let people know ahead of time when you'll be gone. And if they're counting on you for something, give them a deadline of when you need their request. Anything that you get before the deadline, you'll handle before you leave. Everything else must wait until you get back and be firm on that. I put an out of office announcement on my email. And for more on that concept, check out this post that I did in conjunction with Brittany Naylor for both the Evernote blog and for this site. Between letting people know that I'd be gone and including that out of office response, that cut down considerably on the email that I would have when I came back. Next, work ahead. What can you do ahead of time before going on that trip? We all have recurring deadlines. During the time that I would be gone, I had four of them that come around every week. First, I offer an online course geared for school administrators in my state. The course consists of a book study with supplementary material and exercises accessed through the course portal. Well, every Saturday, I send an email to the present cohort. Each of those emails parallels a chapter in the book. Well, I would be out of town during the time that one of those emails needed to go out. So I wrote the email ahead of time and used Gmail's send later feature so that it went out exactly at the same time it would have if I had been in town. Next, every Tuesday, I send content to my email list. Composing this email is something that I do every Friday, even though it doesn't go out to Tuesday. Having that several days of cushion is nice so that if an opportunity presents itself, well, I still have several more days when I can get that email ready for the list. So if Friday is unusually busy, I've got Saturday, I've got Sunday, I've got Monday, I've even got Tuesday morning. So before the trip, I wrote the email that I normally would have written on the Friday that I would be gone, scheduled it to release on the appropriate Tuesday, and all was well. It was just as if I had been here. Likewise, the content that you're enjoying right now releases on Tuesday, but it's composed weeks in advance. My goal is to have the content for the entire month composed, recorded, edited, and scheduled before the month begins. In this particular case, I'm recording on a Friday and releasing Tuesday. What I did have scheduled for this Tuesday and for the remainder of the month has all been pushed back a week into the future. Next, I write a weekly newspaper column, and I have a deadline of Thursday of each week for submission. Well, since I hate bumping up against deadlines, I always submit my article on Wednesday so that I'll have that extra day in case something happens. Well, I arrived from my trip late Wednesday evening, and I still could have made that Thursday deadline. But no, I wrote the article, attached it to an email to the editor, and scheduled it to send on the date that I normally would have sent it anyway, on Wednesday. The next thing that helped me out was using little windows of wait time. Every trip comes complete with hurry up and wait segments. So during the trip, I used that time to triage email. During that time, I was able to do the following things: delete what was of no interest, Snooze other items of interest until several days after my return. I love the snooze feature in Gmail. And I had time to handle important items that only required a quick reply. When we stepped on the plane to fly home, my email inbox contained exactly one email. That was the email containing the information for that flight. Okay, so now I'm back home. What do I do? After our flight and the drive home, it was time for bed on Wednesday night. So the next morning, it was time to get up and get to work. But with so much that I had postponed until my return and other things that arrived, where do I start? Well, rule number one for me is don't be the bottleneck. Just like in tennis or basketball, you want to get the ball out of your court and into the other person's court as quickly as possible. So what are other people waiting on from me? They can't move forward until they hear from me. That's not a situation I like to be in, and probably you don't either. Because when we're in that situation, we find ourselves fielding these phone calls and emails from people that are asking for a status report. You've been there, right? So, first up was the online course that I mentioned earlier. We're moving into the final weeks, and some participants are turning in their final projects. Well, they need feedback from me on how they did, and they need that in a timely fashion. So, I handled that first. Next was data related to a project that I'm working on involving a dozen or so schools. So, for the schools that had submitted their data before the trip, was all handled. And for those that missed that deadline and needed to wait until my return, they're now waiting on me. And I wanted to get that turned around as quickly as possible. That way, I'm no longer the bottleneck. Next, I turned my attention to where are other people the bottlenecks? In two other areas, I'm waiting on information from others before I can move forward with those projects. Well, it's really no problem. We're really not looking at a pressing deadline, and I have plenty to do to keep me busy. But I do want them working on their part so that when I'm now ready to turn my attention to those projects, I'll have the information. So, next up was sending emails letting those people know what I'm waiting on, and those emails usually get things moving. Now I've got some breathing room. I'm not the bottleneck. I've taken steps to remove the bottlenecks created by other people. Now I can start to reestablish some balance. I'd snoozed some emails from the previous week, and some of them are receipts from this trip. Well, I can take time to assemble and record all of the receipts from the trip, both paper and digital. I always keep a pouch in my briefcase, just a little zippered pouch. It's great for holding all kinds of little pieces of paper that my wife and I accumulate. And at this point, we print out those receipts that are digital so that we now have everything in one place, all in paper form, that we can match those pieces of paper to the credit card statements as they arrive. Now, we make them all paper. At some point in the future, we'll likely hit a tipping point where most of the receipts we're getting are arriving digitally, and digitizing everything is going to be the better option. But right now, they're paper. So between these receipts that were digital and paper, everything's in one place. We're ready for those credit card statements so we can match everything up. And it's also a good time to leave reviews for the bed and breakfast where we stayed on our trip. Now, I also have emails that I'd snoozed that are returning over the coming days. Each are self explanatory. They're things to read, they're offers I may want to take advantage of. Each one takes very little time. And often, though, it's the little things that fall through the cracks and cause problems down the road. So keeping this system clean is important. I want every piece of paper in its place, every email handled, my Evernote inbox empty, and my task list in good order. I want the system clean so that it can function well. Now let's talk about new opportunities. One of the benefits of being organized is that when new opportunities present themselves, you're ready. My first day back, a podcast episode where I had been a guest released. And I want to take some time to promote that post through my social media channels and include it in the weekly email to my subscribers. And a wonderful review of my book, Get Organized Digitally, appeared on the Middle Web blog. I had no idea that this was coming. Now, I want to be able to promote that review as well as send thanks to the reviewer and to the Middle Web blog. Now, all of the content for my blog, podcast, and YouTube channel is completed and scheduled for the rest of the month. I already mentioned that. And because of this episode, those episodes for the rest of this month were pushed a week. So I now have one of them already done for the first week in October. I can now tackle something big. Well, I mentioned a book study earlier. That book study is on Get Organized Time Management for School Leaders. Because of its popularity, I'm going to create a similar book study to accompany my latest book, Get Organized Digitally, The Educator's Guide to Time Management. The target release is January 1st, but I want to have the majority of the work completed by the end of September so I can begin promoting the course during the last quarter of the year. So that's my formula for taking a vacation and not spending the whole time worrying about my return. Prepare others for your departure. Work ahead of deadlines before you leave. Triage email while you're gone. Don't be the bottleneck. Follow up with others to break the bottleneck. Handle the little stuff so you can clear the decks. And take on something big with total control over your time and the peace of mind that nothing is falling through the cracks. Hey, if you like this video, how about giving it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel? And while you're here, take a look at these two videos right over here. Thanks for stopping by today. This has been Frank Buck, helping you get organized and make it look easy.